All right, Craig, coming in live in what we will call a not so great situation. I gotta admit, I don't say I've given up on the team. I've given up on this game because I think you let me know if I should even. I had it on the TV over there, but now I'm not in front of it. You tell me when I should at least put it on the TV that I should start paying attention. You let me know.
My gut's saying that we're not going to have to worry about you putting this game back on the TV with 2 outs in the top of the 9th and Santiago Espinal up at the plate. So
okay,
I'll let you know if anything changes. But my gut is going to go ahead and tell me I think you're safe.
All right. Well, you let me know if I got to do that. But
yeah. How was your day today, Trace? Better before this? Better before the Grand Slam?
Yeah, I was running around, took my son to practice, and then kind of was watching on my phone. Never the easiest viewing experience when you're kind of, bouncing around, doing some things. Listened to the radio for a minute, and then, unfortunately, I think I missed one of the most important parts of the game with the Candelario error. But I seen Ashcraft throw the ball. I seen Elly be a little too aggressive. And I guess I just came to expect what this offense is at this point. So it's kind of where we're at.
Well, Espinal flies out to center field. So let's
what time it is.
That beautiful intro.
Yep. And you know what intro you get on days like today. All right, welcome into another losing edition of Chatterbox Reds at an unorthodox time. You know, I got to be honest. Not only is it one thing to lose the baseball game, it's another thing to lose the baseball game at 12 in the morning Eastern time, and then subsequently 6:40 Eastern time. I kind of like losing, at least at good times, which is more or less, right around 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. Maybe for a day game. You get it at 3 o'clock. But these random times, Craig, on the West Coast, not a big fan of. And I'm sure we'll have some we don't have Nick here today to brighten the spirits, per se. I do think we could try to make sure that we don't overreact today on today's show. But it's going to be a little difficult because it just seems like what we thought was going to happen eventually is starting to happen. And I don't know how you feel about it here before we get into everything, but Craig, welcome to the show. A great one to join, by the way.
It feels great to be back. I was really excited when you reached out, asked me to fill in. Obviously, since I haven't done it publicly, congrats to Nick and to Andrea on the birth of their new daughter. Right. Happy to fill in. Unfortunate to fill in on a day like today. I think there's a lot of things at play here that I'm sure we will talk on here throughout the show, but just, I think one inning really just kind of ruined the entire series for you. And if you take away that Fernando Cruz inning and the Grand Slam, we may be having a very different conversation today. And we may have a very different mentality coming back home. So with that being said, you take it for what it is, and you try to move on and try to find some positives in it. And me and Nick, that's what we do.
You do try to be positive about it, and certainly today is a day in which I'll do my best. But I will also say, you take away the one inning, and you might be right. You might be right, but the reality is that you play 9 innings, and all 9 of them count, and every run that crosses the plate counts. And inevitably, in professional sports, the margin for error and or the difference is often pretty thin, not as vast as we want to make it out to be. And you know what? Today was a day in which the Reds could have won. They could have won, and they found themselves in a spot where they continue to have to run guys out there that it just doesn't make sense, which we'll get into in just a minute. Before we do that, we'll try to stick to the script, as they say. We'll do the box score recap. Craig, I don't have like a nice, lovely, beautiful graphic to throw over your face or anything like that. Nick would 100% have that today. Just not going to happen. Not my day. But overall, little quick rundown here for those that maybe are just catching this game late or didn't get a chance to see it all.
Yeah, well, the chat can enjoy my face as I read through this lovely box score for them. Look, Spencer Steer got the action started in the first, gave us a little bit of an insight into what this game would really be all about. He hit a solo shot to left field to give the Reds a 1-0 lead in the top of the first. We'll talk about that drive a little bit later, I am sure.
Yep.
But in the bottom of the first, we got a little bit more insight as Manny Machado hit a deep drive to right center field, but Stuart Fairchild makes possibly the play of the season by robbing Machado of that home run on a leaping grab over the wall. The score would stay at 1-0 until the bottom of the fourth. After Luis Campusano grounded out to start the inning, Jackson Merrill would reach on an error by Jeimer Candelario when he dropped a flip from Jonathan India. That should have been an easy out. Kim would single to left field, advancing Merrill to second, and a fielder's choice by Wade erased Kim at second. But after Wade stole second, Jurickson Profar continued his hot hitting by singling in Wade and Merrill to give the Padre a 2-1 lead on 2 unearned runs. However, in the top of the fifth, a 9-pitch at bat by Santiago Espinal ends up with him picking up a line drive double to the left field corner, and Jeimer Candelario would do his best to make up for that error by sending a single to right field of his own, bringing in Espinal to tie up the game at 2-2, where it would stick until David Bell turned to Fernando Cruz in the 7th inning. Wade again reaches on a bunt single, which we'll talk about later on, and after a foul attempt at a bunt by Jurickson Profar that barely went foul down the third base line, he would single to right center, advancing Wade to third. Fernando Cruz would walk Fernando Tatis Jr. on 4 pitches, and then the very first pitch to Jake Cronenworth, the Slam Diego Padres would clear the bases and take a 6-2 lead, all where this one would end up in the end. The Padres take this one home 6-2 over your Redlegs.
That they do. We did have a deep drive of the day. It came in the first inning. For those that are wondering, it came off the bat of Spencer Steer. It would be his 4th home run of the year. 101.6 off the bat, 390 feet, gave the Reds a 1-0 lead. And at that moment, Reds had a 56% chance to win the baseball game. Unfortunately for them, they would not hold the lead again for the rest of the day. So the Deep Drive of the Day, as always, is sponsored by DSC. They are a leader in renewable commodities for biofuel production, specializing in used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities for more information. And thank you, as always, to DSC. You did a great job running through the box score. Essentially, that was the difference in the game. Everyone's going to point to is without question the grand slam, and that's the easy thing to point to. I do think that there are small things that make a difference in baseball games, right? And one of those, you had an opportunity perhaps kind of to get the ball rolling or build some momentum. Unfortunately, Elly, he's a young player. He's going to continue to make some mistakes from time to time. I'm not trying to defend him and say that, in essence, that they're excusable every single time. He decided to try to take third on a routine ground ball to shortstop, gets thrown out at third base, making the first out at third, and the Reds weren't able to find a way to score there, and it kind of like stuttered some momentum you thought the Reds were going to build. Moving on, I had mentioned it. I didn't see the Candelario error. Obviously, it allowed them to score the 2 runs, though. And then from there, the Reds never really got a chance to take the lead again. So, I guess let's just start here because this is where everybody's frustration lies. And I don't know how you feel yet about it, Craig, but essentially the injured list and this offense right now are going hand in hand. You can't continue to run out guys that have no business facing these specific pitchers, especially even towards the end of games or late game situations where we have Nick Martini hitting no matter what. We have Stuart Fairchild hitting against anybody no matter what. You have Will Benson hitting against anybody no matter what. And at some point, Craig, you'd like to think that you have to have somebody off the bench in these games to help you out, and they just don't have that because they refuse to use the IL, which, again, you can convince me that makes sense, Craig, if the guy's out maybe a day or two. But when you start letting it linger into this now, we're going to look at 4 or 5. We're going to be at 5 days by the next time, I guess, CES and or Tyler Stevenson plays again. That is if they're going to play, obviously, on Friday. If they don't play on Friday, there might be riots in the streets. I don't know. Where are you at with this? Your overall thought on it, and I guess do you think it makes as big of an impact as everybody's going to make it out to be?
Well, of course it makes an impact. I mean, you've got guys like Jeimer Candelario having to play first base, which obviously over the last couple games we've seen, he is not a first baseman. Not only did he have the error today on the clear drop from Jonathan India, I'm still a firm believer he should have caught that ball from Elly De La Cruz the other night when he threw it 107 miles an hour or whatever it was. Yeah. So, yeah, of course it matters. We're continuing to throw Luke Maile out there, which, again, Luke is not used to playing every day, and so he's having to catch now 5 days in a row or 4 days in a row, whatever it may be. It's just not realistic in today's day and age for MLB catchers to be catching every single game. It just doesn't happen. And he's catching guys that he's unfamiliar with. And then, of course, at the plate, he goes 0 for 3. He strikes out twice. He grounds into a double play. I'm not saying Tyler Stevenson would have done any different. We have no way to know. But Tyler Stevenson's bat has been hot. And so you take him out of this lineup. Not only does it affect the games where he misses, but who knows what he's going to be when he comes back. Now, obviously, we saw Tyler Stevenson and CES were able to take batting practice today. So hopefully that's a good indication that they will be back on Friday when the Reds return home to face the Orioles. But yeah, if they're not playing on Friday, the fact that we wasted 4 days without making a substitution in the roster is a complete mismanagement of the roster as a whole. My struggle here, and this is the difficulty is, and obviously in the NFL, you're playing once a week. You can bring up guys or sit guys on a weekly basis and make those decisions. In baseball, the minimum having to miss 10 games puts you in difficult positions. Realistically, at the end of the day, if Tyler Stevenson misses 3 or 4 games, would you be willing to give up 10 games of Tyler Stevenson in order to sub him for those 3 games on the roster? Or do you sit and not have anybody off the bench for 3 days? Yeah. So that's where the difficult decision is. And you really don't know because the injury is a bone bruise, right? Or whatever they want to call it, contusion, whatever. I don't know. I legitimately don't know what I'm doing in this situation as a manager and as a GM because I don't know the extent of the injuries. But if they are back on Friday, which all indications are that CES and Tyler Stevenson will be back on Friday, I don't know that you can fault them. And unfortunately, as much as we hate to say it, let's say best case scenario, you go to San Diego and you take 2 out of 3. Well, you still took 1 out of 3. So did not having those guys mean that you dropped 1 extra game that you should have won? Does it mean you dropped 2? Does it mean you still would have dropped both of them? You don't know that. But from a outsider's perspective, obviously, it's really tough having to run the same guys out there. And like you said, more importantly, not having guys available for matchups to be able to do what David Bell does, in my opinion, best, and that is use his roster in a way that enables his players to be in the best position to succeed.
I do agree. I just wonder if they did this last year a couple times too. And I'm not trying to keep a tally here on how many times the front office and or maybe the players they mismanage their situation. But you got to be honest with yourself on when you're going to be back. I don't want this thing. This can't just be we're hoping and wishing. I think you'd be stubborn with it. And it's if you're not ready to go after day 2 of a day-to-day injury, then you got to start to ask seriously difficult questions and say, okay, you're just going to go on the 10-day IL, and if it means that we're going to lose you for, like you said, an extra 4 or 5 days, that's just what it means, because we can't continue to assume that you're going to be back day in and day out. We were told that CES was available. That's what we were told. Yesterday, he took batting practice. He's going to be readily available tomorrow. Now, maybe they didn't. Maybe they just thought that they were going to be overly cautious with it. I don't know. But you get a day off tomorrow. I get that. And I fully expect them to be back Friday. Yes, I do. Well, you could also make the counter argument, Craig, to say, okay, well, you don't really know what the guys that are going to come up in replace of like a guy like CES, for instance, right? If we want to use, I'm guessing we're going to use the example of Mike Ford. I don't know if that's the perfect example, but that's who it's going to be. And my argument would be, no offense to CES, this isn't being disrespectful, but let's not sit here and act like CES is worth waiting around for most of the season. He's not been very good. He's been pretty bad. So I'm okay with maybe being like 4 or 5 days of maybe just having Mike Ford come up. Let me see what I got, especially if I know for a fact he's going to play and I'm still waiting on CES to be quote-unquote healthy. I don't know. Again, we're not in the locker room. I'm trying to be fair. We're not in the locker room, so I don't 100% know. Maybe he's ready to go. He's more than ready to go. But you want to talk about somebody blowing a gasket on Friday. If these guys aren't in the lineup, it's going to be me. Because at some point, you got to say to him, I don't care if you think you're ready tomorrow or not. It doesn't matter anymore. Like, we got to have a full roster. And guess what? You're not ready to play. You're going on the IL. That's what it's meant to be. So you can. The good news is you can retroactively do it, which, maybe they use that as an excuse far too often. But I don't know. I'm not trying to get overly frustrated because I think I said this before we started this whole thing, right? Like I said, if they go 13-17 in the next 30 days, they're going to be 2 games below 500 around June 1st. You can survive in advance if you're 2 games below 500 on June 1st. You can't survive in advance if you're 8 or 9 games below 500 on June 1st. And I'm not sounding the alarm, but let's face it, this offense is terrible. It just is. It's so bad. And really what we're doing is we're relying on like 2 guys, Elly De La Cruz and Spencer Steer, to be quite frank, to like put the team on their back and then beg one other guy to help us out that night. That's what we've been doing. It's a miracle they're above 500. God's honest truth.
I just don't think we've seen a fully healthy roster yet. So like, I don't want to, the offense as it sits today is god awful. I'm with you on that.
I could agree with what you're saying.
A lot of people in the chat are trying to blame Nick Krall, trying to blame David Bell. Like, what do you want them to do in these situations, right? That's the difficult part here is I don't know what the answer is unless you want to turn to Austin Wynns or Michael Troutwine at your catcher to bring in and have Luke Maile take a day off, or if you want to bring up Mike Ford or some other first baseman prospect that you've never heard of, most likely, right? So I don't know that answer, but at the bottom, at the end of the day, when we're talking about the offense specifically, Tyler Stevenson either unavailable or couldn't start or whatever. Christian Encarnacion-Strand, obviously. Matt McLain, obviously. TJ Friedel. So I don't want to bash Nick Krall like this chat is trying to do right now. I understand the frustration, but it's not Nick Krall's fault that he's got 4 of his top 6 players on the IL right now. That's not Nick Krall's fault.
But it is his responsibility, to be clear, to try to do your best when the waters get rough in situations that might not have been foreseen. Like, I get, we can't. Of course, I do agree, in Craig. Baseball. Say it again.
You have projections when you're setting up a team. You're trying to set yourself up for the future. I understand that you have to have backup plans when things go wrong, but you also have to set up yourself up for long-term success. And if that means that whoever your next man up is as your future catcher or your future first base, if they're not ready for the major leagues, I'm not going to burn someone like that either, right? So the reason that they didn't bring somebody up when Matt McLain went down is because they didn't feel like that position was ready from a prospect position, right? So like, I think the difficulty is, especially when you're a team like the Reds and you're mid-market, low end market with not a big budget is that ultimately you're trying to grow your farm system. And that farm system needs experience and it needs opportunities to grow. And it doesn't help anybody by throwing those guys into the fire before they're ready at the major league level. And so I am with you on Mike Ford, and we will have that conversation next on the rundown. But as an overall development of the roster, like, I don't think very many people can complain about what the future of this team looks like, but I understand the frustration today. But we're still kind of straying away from the fact of the matter is that, quite frankly, whether it's backups or starters, you've got 26 men on a roster. The 9 guys that were starting on this roster today were expected to be on that 26-man roster, with the exception of Santiago Espinal, obviously, who was traded for and would have been on the 26-man roster with the Blue Jays. So every single one of these were expected to be MLB rosters. And at the end of the day, like many people are saying, you manage 4 hits and 2 runs. That's not going to win a whole lot of Major League Baseball games.
No, I know what you're saying in regards to Nick Krall. I'm just saying it is his responsibility at some point to step in and say that we can't play shorthanded forever. You can't play shorthanded forever. So I do understand the logic of trying to hold out maybe another day or two to make sure that you don't miss out on, 4 or 5 days of these guys being healthy. But, we've also already missed out on basically 4 days of them not being healthy and on having somebody to come up and help. And you're 100% right, Craig, in regards to the fact that if you did bring somebody up, would it have mattered anyways? Would they have won, 1 or 2 games out there, or would they have only won 1 game out in San Diego regardless? Maybe. But I have a sincere question. What the hell happens if Luke Maile gets hit in the leg or something? Well, we just gonna assume that somebody's randomly going to catch? And I'm not. It's not an easy situation. But people that that make hundreds of thousands of dollars, they don't make hundreds of thousands of dollars just because anybody can do it. They make that money because ultimately, at the end of the day, they're in tough spots sometimes, and they got to make hard decisions, and they're going to have to face the consequences of those hard decisions. And right now, they decided they didn't want to go out and get a right-handed bat. Right? Is that fair to say in the outfield? They did not go out and get a right-handed bat. And not only that, but then they found out that a couple of guys went down that they didn't expect to go down, and they decided they were going to hold pat, which, again, I'm not suggesting for a single second that if they had gone out, and maybe, to be fair, I'm not overly frustrated, to be clear. Like, most of this is just like a rational discussion right now, or at least trying to be rational and having a fair debate. I'm not, to be very clear right now, this isn't like, oh my God, basically the world's ending here for Reds country, because it's not. But having said that, you, at some point, have to take some responsibility when your lineup looks this abysmal, and it has to do with some things that didn't go your way, clearly, but it also has to do with some of the decisions that you've made, which is, we'll bring into this situation now, which is you've not brought Mike Ford up at all. He's calling their bluff now, right, to where he's like, you know what, I'm going to opt out of my contract and give these guys a couple days to make a decision on what they want to do, because to be fair to Mike Ford and his agent, I'll say this. If they're not going to bring up Mike Ford now, when the hell are they going to bring him up? Because if you don't need Mike Ford now, you might as well just let him go. And Mike Ford, for all intents and purposes, last year had I'm pretty sure he had a pretty good WRC plus, but I'm pretty sure his OPS in Seattle was pretty good. He went into spring training. You could make the argument that he was one of the better hitters in spring training all year for the Cincinnati Reds. And I get that spring training, sometimes you can point towards this narrative and that narrative, but I will say this. Last year, you know who was the best hitter in spring training, or one of the best players in spring training? Matt McLain was. And you know who was probably one of the better players in this team all year last year when he finally got a chance to come up after he hit 900 in AAA for like 2 months? We just let him sit there and just assume, he's going to come back down to earth. It was Matt McLain. So, yeah, if you're asking me right now, this is the easiest decision in the world, Craig, and that's not hyperbole. I mean that genuinely. I just hope they don't let their ego get in the way. I hope they're like, nah, you know what? We're going to stick with it. This is our plan. He's going to try to hardball us and just say, you know what? He's going to opt out of the contract. We'll just let him walk. And just take your medicine, bring him to the big leagues. Do whatever you need to do to get him there, whether somebody goes on the IL or you have to DFA Martini. I'm ready for it.
Yeah, look, so you mentioned his time in Seattle. He hit 228. He had 16 home runs and 34 RBIs in 84 games. Okay, so take that over 162 season. You're looking at a 30-plus home run guy. Then, like you said, he's been mashing AAA pitching. I don't know what that means compared to coming up to the majors, but like you mentioned, in spring training, even he was looking really good. So far this season, Mike Ford batting .297 at AAA, 6 home runs, 15 RBIs with a .919 OPS. He had 10 extra base hits in April versus Nick Martini, who's batting .189 with 3 homers and 15 RBIs with a .564 OPS. His last extra base hit, despite playing nearly every day, was April 14th against the Chicago White Sox. He had 2 total extra base hits in April. At this point, like you're saying, it's time to bite the bullet, right? Nick Martini may be the best clubhouse guy in the major leagues,
right?
But if he can't contribute to you on the playing field, then what good is he? Turn him into a coach if you want to put him in the clubhouse and you want to keep him around. But right now, offensively, he's not providing anything, and we know defensively he doesn't provide anything. So if neither player is going to provide anything defensively, you might as well put the guy in who can offensively provide, and that right now seems to be Mike Ford, or at the very least, give Mike Ford the opportunity to prove himself. I mean, this is a guy who's been in the major leagues for long enough. I mean, made his major league debut in 2019. He's been in the league long enough, and he's done enough at the major league level to earn a chance, I would think. And quite frankly, Nick Martini against left-handed pitching is just atrocious. And that's your DH right now. That's standing in there on a nearly everyday basis. I don't know. I think like you said, if I'm Mike Ford's agent, first and foremost, I've already had conversations with other teams. I've got somebody lined up. I know where I'm going the minute the Reds let me go, right? So that's the first thing I'll say. If we decide not to activate Mike Ford, he is gone. We are not bringing him back again. He already 100%. Had something lined up. But if you're his agent, now's the right time. Force the hand. Nick Martini is not performing. Mike Ford is at the AAA level.
CES is questionable every single day.
Is hurt and may or may not be around. You got to do something.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe now's the right time, right? I mean, they just get off a West Coast trip. They're coming back home.
Got an off day tomorrow.
Maybe it makes it easy. Off day tomorrow, just a nice little calm drive up from Louisville for Mike
Correct.
Ford.
I will say this. I think that there's some merit to that as well. I think that there's a chance that they decided, you know what, let's not throw Mike Ford on a plane, have him fly all the way out to San Diego, get off the plane, walk into the clubhouse for the first time all year, have to play 1-day game of baseball, and turn around and fly all the way back to Cincinnati. Let's give him a fresh, clean start. Let him get, acclimated per se, if you want to call it that, in the clubhouse. Bring him up there tomorrow on the off day. And I don't know whether, I'm assuming you put him in the lineup on Friday night. I am all for that, and I think that makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. And I think my heart of hearts tells me that's what they're going to do. If they don't do that, though, then at that point, we're going to have to scratch our heads, and we're going to have to do some hard thinking, because like I said, I love Nick Krall. I do appreciate everything that he's done for this franchise so far. He's been excellent, for lack of a better term. Having said that, we're going to have some hard conversations with these guys. Like, is Jake Fraley okay or not? I need to know. Jake Fraley, you can't be like, and if you're sick, Craig, that's fine. Like, that's part of it, but we got to go on the IL. We can't sit here and be like, you know what, I'll be fine, coach. Let me get a night's sleep. And then you come back and you play 1 day, and then you take 3 more days off. And then you play 1 day and take 3 more days off. Like, this is not a team that can do that right now. So let's be very clear. They're going to have to get to the bottom of this, and hopefully they do it fast, because they got a lot of good teams coming up, and we already know that. So just jump into Ashcraft here real quick. I thought he threw the ball relatively well. He got himself out of trouble in the first inning. I'd call that fortunate, right? And he kind of was, I don't want to say he's struggling in the first inning, but he got himself out of it, so it ultimately, didn't matter. My brain still serves me correct. I'm running on low sleep at this point.
Look, here's my take on Graham Ashcraft. First and foremost, Graham Ashcraft is and always has been a dog. Like, it just feels like he performs under pressure. And when things are either not going his way or the other team's getting lucky, he just finds a way to bear down and get out of it. It's just what he seems to do every single time. Now, I will say this. I didn't think Graham Ashcraft had his best stuff today. I didn't think he had his best control today. Obviously, he walked a number of batters early on in the game. Yep. I thought he settled in around the fourth inning, though. And it's weird to say because ultimately it was when the error happened that he settled in. But after that point, I mean, he retired 7 straight after giving up the 2 unearned runs. And look, I just feel like anytime he goes out there, he's going to put us in a position to compete for the win. And now in his last 11 2/3 innings, he's given up 12 total hits and 1 earned run. I mean, it just feels like, and I want to shout out the entire starting rotation. Like, it just, obviously Nick Martinez has struggled a little bit.
But I mean, his last start, to be fair, his last start was pretty good.
Yep. Has put this Reds team in a position to be successful, which just amplifies the challenges that they're having offensively. And so if this team can put something together offensively with the way the starting rotation has gone, it is a very dangerous team. And to your point, if you can stick around 500, in my opinion, until around the All-Star break, you've got a real good chance of competing for this division.
Couldn't agree more. All right, for those that are looking maybe to go to the baseball games this weekend, got Baltimore Orioles coming into town. Nice Friday, Saturday, Sunday tilt. You got May the 4th be with you on Saturday. You got Alexis Diaz bobblehead day on Sunday. You know where to go to get your tickets, the Game Time app. If you have not done that already, download the Game Time app, use the code CINCY, CINCY. You get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Game Time doesn't want to get sued, so apparently, Craig. So terms do apply. And use the code CINCY. You get $20 off. And thank you, as always, obviously, to Game Time and supporting us. So the other thing I wanted to add here, Big Z with a big super chat here. He said, on a positive note, guys, the candy purchase must be working. But I think we all know Candyman went out and got himself a slump buster. Kids show, sorry. Love you guys. He might have. He could have used a slump buster a little quicker, to be honest. And I'd like to think that there's some places around Cincinnati he could found one. Not going to be disrespectful.
Well, San Diego.
Well, I'm saying he could have probably found one in Cincinnati a little sooner than. I mean, it's not like this. It's not like this need for a slump buster arose in San Diego. And if I had to guess, San Diego probably not as easy as a place to find a slump buster as Cincinnati. But I don't know. Maybe so. All right. Ashcraft, he's just on the rundown because he was a starter. I don't think that really today was a huge talking point on Graham Ashcraft, other than the fact that he did what he always does, and he goes out there and he competes his tail off. He sweats. He makes his gray jersey look even more gray. You think he's wearing a different jersey than everybody else. And, the biggest thing for this starting rotation is going to be health. It's good news. We did get good news on that front today. Montas, I think he's going to maybe miss just one more start, and then he'll probably be back after that. So good to hear that Frankie Montas is A-OK, which we expected. It was just more or less giving himself a chance to get that swelling and bruise to go down. So this team's, I mean, they are what they are. You know, I think everybody always wants to use the excuse of injuries and maybe from time to time you're guilty of that as a franchise, saying, oh, we got this guy out, that guy out, and you look around the league and a lot of guys got a lot of guys out. But it just seems like this team can't get out of their own way, man. And hopefully at some point this season, we will get an opportunity to see what we thought we were going to see before the season started. We get a chance to see Marte, McLean, Friedel, hopefully a healthy CES, a positive and productive Candelario. And then from there, you know what? I would say, Craig, like, you fill in the pieces from there. Like, Will Benson's a guy that you wouldn't really notice him struggling as much if he was just a fringe guy. But when he starts to become a guy that you rely on a lot, or you're hoping that you're going to get a lot out of, Then you start to pay attention and you realize, oh, this guy's struggling pretty bad. I'm not out on Will Benson, but I am to say he's trickling towards the worrisome category. I would be lying if I didn't say that. So, all right.
Sure. I mean, Will Benson today, 0 for 4, not ideal. But again, him batting leadoff going 0 for 4 is a lot different than him being in the 8 or 9 hole going 0 for 4. And right now he's just having to fill in a role that's just not for him. And he's playing every day because Jake Fraley's not healthy. So, yeah, look at the lineup today. Legitimately, Will Benson, not a guy that should be in there every day. De La Cruz and Steer, sure. India, not a guy that should be in there every day. Martini, not a guy that should be in there every day. Espinal, not a guy that should be in there every day. Candelario probably is a guy that you expected to be in there every day, but not at first base and not every day. I mean,
and we didn't expect him to play this poorly.
Sure. Yeah. Maile, not expected to play every day. Stuart Fairchild, not expected to play every day, specifically not against right-handed pitching. So what do you want to do?
Exactly. Exactly. I feel the same way about this club right now. And it's really tough to get mad at anybody. It really is, because when you strip it back, you just have to ask yourself, well, what would you expect them to do to fix this problem? You know?
Here's what I'll say is that you've got a really big stretch here over the next 2 weeks where you've got 6 with the Diamondbacks, you've got 3 with the Giants, you've got 3 with the Dodgers. Like, every game is going to be against a highly competitive team, and you need your lineup healthy. And not to say that you threw away the West Coast trip. I'm not saying that by any means, but nobody expected you to go to San Diego and get a sweep. You've got a chance now to come back home. You've got 3 against the Orioles this weekend. You've got a chance to get yourself back on track with a healthy, hopefully, lineup. You get Jake Fraley back. You get CES back. You get Tyler Stevenson back. And now this lineup looks completely different. So, with that being said, not to excuse losses, we've been there before, but you're not going to win 162. What is it you say every time? You're going to win 60, you're going to lose 60. It's all about what you do with the other 42. This is a 2-week stretch here where they have a chance to do something with the other 42 and pick up games that maybe you weren't expected to win, including a 1, 2, 9, 10-game road trip against the Giants, D-backs, and Dodgers. Pick up 3 of those games, and I go 3-7 on that West Coast trip there. And I might be okay with that.
I don't know about 3
obviously
and 7.
Would love
I would say
6 or
4
5
and 6.
5, but
4 and 6 I can live with, and obviously 3 and 7's tough. I had said before 13 and 17. We're already 2 games under. At some point, let's face it. Hopefully, this team can just get hot and play above their heads. Can we get some guys to play above their heads? Like, I know Nick Martini's not good, but like, at least one or 2 games out of the 15 games of being bad, can we at least, maybe pick up a double or 2 here? Like, you just can't be historically bad, and that's what we've had so far. So we'll see if Martini's even on this roster come Friday. I don't know if he will be, but we'll find out. All right, Fernando Cruz. We'll round out the show with this topic here. I have no problem with what happened with Fernando Cruz. Not a single thing, man. The guy, I know that Chris Welsh on the broadcast was suggesting that the guy, I don't even know his name off the top of my head right here. He was the 9-hole hitter. He was 0 for 2 on the day. He tried to drag bunt. Right. I know Chris Welsh was suggesting that maybe he was trying to do that. He wasn't trying to do that. The bat head, like I watched, you look at the replay, his bat head slightly dropped as he was dragging it, and it just luckily bounced or flew right over top of Cruz's head. So that's a little unlucky. And then you have Profar, by the way, what an unbelievable series he had. I mean, that guy's just red hot. I mean, I don't even know if I'm being a little bit of sarcastic here. I don't even know if the guy got out all week that I was watching. But, he ends up making an unbelievable bunt. Espinal, by the way, makes an incredible play that goes unnoticed, and no one will ever talk about it because it ended up not mattering. But if it would have mattered, we would have been on here talking about how great of a play it was by Espinal. So I give him all the credit in the world. For those that didn't get a chance to watch the game, and Profar lays down a good bunt. It rolls right up the line, down the line. You expect it to be a base hit. Espinal lets it go, and the thing luckily barely trickles to the left, goes in foul territory just before it hits the bag. So it kind of kept the inning alive, per se, to keep the runner on first with nobody out. Unfortunately, Profar would single. You go first to third. You have a walk, which maybe of all the things that you could suggest, Craig, that maybe you didn't like there was the walk to load the bases. And then we all know what happened after that with the grand slam. So, listen, this bullpen is going to have some regression at some point. You can't be this good unless, again, to be fair, unless I'm just completely wrong about a lot of these guys, and I don't mean to degrade our guys, but I just don't suspect these guys to be this good all year long. This is going to happen. What you do need to have happen, Craig, at some point is you need the offense to rescue you on the nights that you do have maybe a little bit of an off night in certain areas. And unfortunately, this offense, they're not doing any rescuing. In fact, all they're doing is basically being the rescuees every single day. It's like the floaties are going into the pool for the offense every single day. And at some point, hopefully, that will change. But until it does, unfortunately, the bullpen's going to need to be perfect. The starting pitching is going to have to be good. And if they're not, we're going to try to blame them from time to time, Craig. But I'm not blaming them at all until the offense figures it out. Put it that way.
So here's what I'm going to say. First of all, Profar's batting .500 over the last 7 games. So, like, take anything that he does with a grain of salt. The walk to Tatis on 4 straight pitches was annoying to me. He had been 0 for 3 on the day. He looked terrible in his first 3 at-bats. Like, that was a miss for me. Obviously, you want to see Fernando Cruz attack the hitters. I think he just got out of his groove right off the bat with the lucky quote unquote bunt or whatever you want to call it out of Wade to start the inning. Got out of his groove and completely threw him off. I actually don't think that the pitch to Cronenworth was a bad pitch. It was on the inside corner. Cronenworth just turned on it and hit it into the seats. But here's the thing, and I don't want to rehash old topics, but if Cruz wants to take this next step into being a potential closer or the go-to guy, you have to be able to put him into situations where he's coming in at the start of an inning and he knows he's going to face the top of the lineup. The reason they went to Cruz in that situation specifically was because they knew they had 9-1-2 due up, right?
Yep.
So the last thing you want to do is you want to go to a reliever that you don't trust to have to face to the top of the lineup. I'll start this by saying, look, Cruz has been amazing all year. I have no doubt that the right move was made. But this is the same struggles that we had out of Alexis Diaz in the past, where quote-unquote low-pressure situations didn't come in and perform to the same level as he would if he were to come into a bases-loaded situation. So I think at the end of the day, I'll write it off as a one-off poor outing. I'm not upset about it. It happens. Literally every single pitcher goes through it at some point. But it is something that you have to note as you're having the conversation about the future of the closing role on this team. He's got to be able to shut it down in situations like that in a tie ball game.
That's fair. I just think I think it's just one outing, which you alluded to that, so I'm not suggesting that you're overreacting or anything like that. It's for my sake, I think the inning can go dramatically different if the guy doesn't get a lucky bunt, and I'll call it a lucky bunt. Maybe it was skill, but I'll continue to think it was a little bit of luck. And then essentially, you got a guy that's incredibly hot right now, Profar, who looks like he's going to get hit off no matter who you throw in there. And then you have one bat at bat with Tatis. And unfortunately, then Cronenworth turned on a fastball, I think it was, and drove it out of the ballpark. So, and that was the end of that. So I don't know. I'm not really going to get overly concerned about Fernando Cruz. I expect the next time he come out, he'll shove, and we'll be right back to talking about how great he is. But until then, we shall find out. All right, for those that are wondering, the Reds do have the off day tomorrow. They will be back in action on Friday against the Baltimore Orioles. Let's see if I don't know if they have the probables. I know from our standpoint, Hunter Green Day, I'd assume. Let's see here.
I'll
pull it up.
Yeah, I'm sure Nick will be able to edit this for us in the post. But
I'll edit in the post. But for those that are looking, let's see here. We got Friday, Red Legs. Hunter Green's going to go against TBD for the Baltimore Orioles. So fact, I think that Baltimore Orioles, and I don't know enough about their club, they just had a guy go down that I think was supposed to face the Reds on Friday. He just went to the IL.
Yeah.
So,
Grayson Rodriguez.
Yeah. So Hunter Green is going to go for the Red Legs, and another night with Hunter Green starting a game in which it feels like the Reds got to win to keep the fan base from absolutely going ape crazy. So let's all say a little prayer that Hunter throws the ball well, because if he doesn't throw the ball well, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough on the socials.
Yeah, so Cincinnati, like you mentioned, Green, Abbott, Lodolo, projected starters. For the Orioles, the Friday game looks like John Means projected to go. He's a lefty, so we'll see how that goes. Grayson Rodriguez, as you mentioned, on Saturday, just hit the IL, so I'm not sure what they will do there yet. And then on Sunday, it's looking like Dean Kramer is lined up for the start for the Orioles. So it'll be Means versus Green, Abbott versus TBD, and Lodolo versus Kramer.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, congratulations to Nick, Andrea, sweet little Betty. The end of the world. So hopefully he's just worried and enjoying that right now. I'm sure that he is, because if he watched the Reds, it wouldn't have provided a whole lot of spark into his probably tired life right now. But the good news is until he gets back, you'll have some people like myself and Craig and Shay and whoever else wants to join the bunch here on Chatterbox Reds to talk about the lovely Reds, our favorite team. And you know what? I'll just say this before we go. I think we're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. I know that it doesn't look like that right now, but I have a good feeling that Hunter Green's going to shove Friday. We're going to find a way to get in the win column. Win that series, Craig, and we're all the way back. How about that? Take care, everybody. Enjoy your day. Enjoy the off day tomorrow. Go Reds.